Alrighty, people. We are now live on my Twitter and the Fireside Knicks YouTube, and in just a moment, we will be on the Fireside Knicks Instagram as well. And of course, we have Johnny back finally. Now it's
Up,
been a
guys? What's
minute
up?
since
Yep,
he's been on
I'm
the
back.
program, but he's finally back on here,
Back.
and I'm very happy to have him back. And
So,
we're just coming on here to discuss some orders of business, but the first main order of business, as to those watching on Twitter and YouTube can see based on the overlay and of course a thumbnail. Deuce McBride is very close to returning. We got a major update today that he practiced today with the team, and he very well could return tomorrow against Oklahoma City. It's not a guarantee. They haven't officially put him as any designation at the moment. He was ruled out against Charlotte last game, but there's been a lot of speculation that he could return as soon as Sunday against Oklahoma City, which is going to be huge because the Knicks really need his presence right now off the bench and just on this team in general. And what's up to everybody in the Instagram chat? I know some people are just now tuning in. Welcome to everybody who is tuning in on this Saturday afternoon. Somebody said, "Yo, you make great videos." I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the
thank you
support from
guys. Thank you
everybody.
guys.
But anyways, Johnny, I'm gonna pass this off to you to kind of just rip off your initial thoughts about this Deuce McBride news and what this really means for the Knicks coming up with the 8 games we have left on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a rough, challenging last 8 games, especially when you're fighting for that 2 seed. It's very, very close right now. And, we're playing a bunch of really solid playoff teams. So Deuce McBride coming back into this rotation is going to be huge for us. He's proud. You could say he's our best bench player in a way. You could say that. He's been a lights out shooter this year when he's played. It's been a really long time since January 28th. So it's been a minute without Deuce. I think this team is going to get that energy back, that shooting and that defensive presence. So I'm really excited to see McBride come back into this rotation. And, with guys like Jose Alvarado clearly not playing the best basketball of his career, Deuce McBride will easily slide back into this rotation. I think he's a guy who's almost rotation proof, if that makes sense. Even if he's
Mhm.
playing bad, you're gonna keep giving this guy minutes because he's that good off the bench. So I'm really excited. And what type of impact do you think he can make, Dylan, in this 8-game stretch to end off the season and then into the playoffs? Do you think there might be a little bit rust coming back and whatnot?
I definitely think there's going to be a little bit of rust. I would be very surprised if he comes back and he's just immediately shooting the lights out like he was. Right now, this season, he's averaging close to 13 points per game, which is a career high, and he's shooting 42% from three, which is also a very high mark. It's one of the highest in the entire league. I don't know if that's going to exactly come back right away. I think this point in the year, I think the fact that he's able to come back or likely able to come back with a few games left in the season is going to be huge because we have to get him in shape and in rhythm for the postseason because that's where we're going to need him more. We need the point of attack defense and, of course, the shooting off the bench, but we really need his presence because, as you just mentioned, Jose Alvarado's really been struggling lately. And Jose Alvarado, I'm a little disappointed in that because he's a guy who was very happy about bringing in. I thought he'd fit in like a glove, and it seemed like the first couple games that was the case. But lately, he's just been very passive offensively. He's been fouling too much on the defensive side. Last game against Charlotte, he only played 5 minutes, and they all came in the second quarter. He didn't play at all in the second half. Tyler Kolek took those minutes, which I think is very noteworthy. I think that's pretty significant that Mike Brown decided to give him a shot. And I do wonder if let's say McBride does not come back tomorrow. Let's say they rule him out and decide to give him an extra day. I wonder if Kolek is going to play ahead of Alvarado. I wonder if Alvarado has kind of lost his spot for that rotation spot, on the bench because with the way he's been struggling lately, it hasn't been going well for him. And there is also a land where Alvarado and McBride could come off the bench together and provide an impact, which I do think would be nice. I do think that'd be a good luxury. But the Knicks also have a ton of guards that are capable of playing right now, and you don't want to make the bench too small because right now I don't think you can take Jordan Clarkson out of the rotation. I think he's been playing too well of late to really warrant getting benched again. Landry Shamet, I know he's been struggling offensively, but he still provides an impact on the defensive side, which I feel like you can't take away. And I feel like Mike Brown feels very trustworthy with Shamet in closing situations, which I think is pretty important. So I don't see either of those two guys getting the boot. I think the odd man out, really, I mean, it's going to be Jose Alvarado. I really think it's going to be him. As much as, it could be Diawara. Diawara already is kind of like, barely even in the rotation as it is. So I already wasn't expecting Diawara to really get significant minutes in these down the stretch games or in the playoffs. So looking where Deuce, fits back into the rotation when he returns, I think he's pretty much just going to take Alvarado's spot, and Alvarado's going to become more of a situational kind of piece, which it's fine. I think they still could value his defensive intensity a little bit, and if they need additional playmaking, use him in that regard. But the fact of the matter is, he has been struggling really bad of late. He's been virtually unplayable the past couple games, and the Knicks are still chasing that second seed. They're still trying to get a high seed in the playoffs, and they're still trying to get their team right before the playoffs because this past month or so, they've won a lot of games, but they haven't been the prettiest of games. So they're still trying to figure a lot of things out. And I think Deuce is simply just going to take Alvarado's spot. And I want to get your input on that because do you think that would be the right decision if that is in fact the case?
I think right now it'd probably be the right decision because, I guess you could say Mike Brown has shown he is dynamic with his rotations. If you're not playing well, he will just not play you. We saw with Jordan Clarkson. He started the season really well. He looked great, efficient shooting, and then it kind of tailored off, and then he simply didn't play for a good portion of time. But then you worked yourself back into the rotation, and now Jordan Clarkson, for at least right now, is a staple of the rotation. So I think Deuce, when he's back, say it's against Oklahoma City, he'll be thrown at that rotation. Maybe Jose Alvarado gets dropped. I think that's probably the decision to make right now. See how Deuce plays. Deuce is a guy, as I said earlier, who is going to be a staple of the rotation. You're going to play him almost no matter what. Like Mitchell Robinson, you're just going to play these guys. You won't find a game where Deuce is simply not playing, especially when he's healthy. Like, maybe they bring him back, they play him a couple of minutes just to ease him back in. But Deuce is a guy who will always play. So it's really between, maybe Jordan Clarkson starts to, not play as well and the efficiency numbers aren't there. Maybe he drops a little bit, or Jose Alvarado, Mo Diawara's role has diminished in the past couple of weeks. So, Mike Brown has shown this is a dynamic rotation. Whoever's playing best will play. So, I'm excited to see what Deuce's impact, will be when he comes back. It might be a little slow. You kind of have to expect that. He's been out for a very, very long time, but I'm excited to see what he does. And I think this is like the perfect time to bring him back. I was worried we were gonna only see Deuce maybe in the first round of the playoffs, and like that's not great because he doesn't have any time to settle in or anything like that. But a nice 8-game sample size to really ease his way back in, and then it's playoff time. And I could honestly see Jose Alvarado. I think Jose Alvarado will play in the playoffs. I think he's a guy who will shine when the lights are brightest. I think his energy will be shown, especially in the playoffs. So I'm interested. I'm very interested to see, where Mike Brown goes with this rotation. Excuse me. Before the playoffs and into the playoffs. I think if I had to make a prediction, I think in terms of, experience, maybe Mo Diawara plays the least in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, again, Mo Diawara, as you just mentioned, he doesn't have a bunch of experience at all, really, in the NBA, and he's obviously got no postseason experience. So I'm not expecting him to play postseason minutes. I as much as we might want that, just because he provides some size and of course the shooting. He obviously is still a rookie, and he's been showing a little bit lately that he's in fact still a rookie. So, I just don't see a world where he's playing significant playoff minutes. I said in one of my previous streams that I expect Diawara to maybe play like 5 minutes in a playoff game.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
that's
see
fair.
him playing any more than that. And if he does play in playoff games, it'll be like, in first quarters, kind of like what Mike Brown was doing back in like February, January, December, when he would play him for a little bit and then he wouldn't really play him again the rest of the way. I feel like that's what we're going to kind of see in the playoffs if we see Diawara on the floor at all. Um, there's going to be plenty of games where I expect him to not play at all. I think with Deuce McBride coming back, the team is going to be very deep, and it's just simply becomes a numbers game at that point where Diawara kind of just falls down that chart. He's just not in, the favorable options category, if you will, for Mike Brown to use at his disposal, and that's a good problem to have. The Knicks have a lot of ton of great options to throw in there at any given moment. And there's even a world where Deuce McBride could end up entering the starting five. Now, do I think he's going to do that right away if it happens? No, I strongly doubt that. They're not going to break up the continuity of the starting five, given that Deuce McBride has been out for nearly 2 months. But with that being said, I think with McBride out there with the starters, we'll be seeing a lot better offense and better defense, and I think we will be seeing him out there quite a bit with the starters. I think kind of like how we've been seeing Mitchell Robinson play with Karl-Anthony Towns a bit more lately. I think we're also going to see some stretches where if like Mitchell Robinson's on the bench, for example, that Deuce McBride is out there with Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby and Towns, which I think would be a great 5-man lineup. I think that would be good for spacing, would be good for defense, because again, McBride is a guy who can be your best point of attack defender. And the Knicks need the defensive upgrade at the moment because lately their defense is taking a step back. Now, granted, they're still, I believe, the top defensive rating since January. So, on paper, they're theoretically still amazing defensively. But the past few games, you feel like there's been some lapses on the 3-point defense. Against Charlotte, for example, 3-point defense really plagued them. And the pace that the Hornets play with really tired out the Knicks. So I think having McBride just give you that energy and provide some relief for guys like Brunson and the guys in the backcourt will be huge for the Knicks. Now, moving on to the next thing I really want to discuss with you is the schedule coming up. The next 8 games are going to be really tough for the Knicks. Objectively, it is a very tough schedule, and my light just turned off like out of nowhere. But anyways, as I was saying, the next 8 games or so are going to be very tough for the Knicks. And when I look at the schedule right here, there we go, got my light back on and working. As I look at the next 8 games, though, for the Knicks, you got Oklahoma City on Sunday, obviously. And then you have the Houston Rockets on Tuesday. And then you got the Grizzlies and the Bulls Wednesday and Friday. Those two should be gimmies. Those should be automatic victories for the Knicks. Honestly, I would be very upset if they drop any of those two. But then after that, it gets tough again because then you got the red hot Atlanta Hawks, who have never lost since they brought in Jonathan Kuminga for some reason. Then you got Boston, which is going to be a very
game.
significant.
That's
going to be a huge game. This is going to be a huge game.
I mean,
Celtics at the
game.
Garden, possibly fighting for that second seed. Hopefully, we're still within good enough reach by then. And then after that, you got Toronto, who we have owned this year. They really should be able to beat the Raptors for a 5th time, which would be pretty remarkable. And then you got the Hornets again for the season finale, who, I mean, they just ran us out the building. They've been playing amazing basketball, and they just ran us out the building lately. So, Johnny, when you look at these next 8 games or so, what do you really expect to see? Because, I'm not expecting to go 8-0, but, for a team that's trying to win a title, I expect them to be very competitive. So, what are you looking for in this next upcoming stretch?
You have to be competitive. This is it. The playoffs are right around the corner, guys, and it feels like it's like the season has flown by. It feels like we shouldn't be at the playoffs, but we are. We are. This team is kind of getting healthy. I mean, we have almost everybody back with Deuce coming back. I want to see competitive games against OKC. I want to see us beat Houston. I want to see us beat Boston because there's so many people out there, regardless of what we've done to the Celtics this season. There's people saying Boston are the Eastern Conference favorites right now. So I want the Knicks to go out there, especially in MSG, third to last game of the season when we're fighting for the 2 seed. I want to go out there and show them we could hang with every team in the league. So I think it's important that we don't. If we get blown out by OKC, that's bad. I don't want to see that at all, obviously. But I just want to see us bring energy, play to our level. Because when I look at this team, I think everybody watching this, any Knicks fan, Dylan, you could agree with this. I do think this is one of the hardest teams to really dissect and talk about ever because you don't know what they're going to show on a nightly basis. One night, wow, this team is incredible. They're hitting their shots. Their defense is looking intense. This looks like a team that could compete and beat any team in the league. And then the next night, they'll just play like they don't know what they're doing. So this team is so hard to really dissect and talk about. So for me, when there's 8 games left of the season, I just want to see intense basketball, do the fundamentals right, hit your shots, and just win basketball games and be competitive and go into this playoffs with a good run of form under you. And then let's see what we go from there. I just want to see some consistent basketball to end the season. That's it.
Right. And we do have a comment on YouTube, so I'm going to take this off for 1 second so I can pull up the comment. This person said, hopefully 6-2 to end the season.
I would take that.
And those are the last 8 games. I would be very happy with that. And he just
Depending
added
on
another comment, and he said no blowouts in the last 8 games, 0 blowouts.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for the Knicks in particular to blow out a team in those next 8 games, but I would like to not see them get blown out. If they get blown out, if they lose by 10 to Oklahoma City, it is what it is. Oklahoma City is the best team in the NBA. You can only do so much. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. If they lose by 15 or by 12 to the Bulls, yeah, I'm going to be mad about that one because we are at the Garden for that game, and the Bulls are quite literally tanking the rest of their season. Somebody else just added another comment too, and they said 6-2 would be great. 5-3 is definitely more realistic. The inconsistency is really what concerns me.
Fair.
And I think that's very well said. The inconsistency has been the biggest issue really with the Knicks all year, and it's me and Johnny's biggest gripe with this team because we know that this team is much better or can be much better than what they show at times. We know that they are a very good team when they got themselves when they're clicking and everything's going well on both ends of the floor, but I feel like we can't ever get that on a consistent basis. And theoretically, the stats will tell you that since January, it has been consistent. But the eye test, when you watch the games, will tell you a little bit of a different story. Because sure, they won 7 games in a row. They've won 7 of their last 8 currently. Awesome. That's fantastic. I'm very happy with that. Am I fully happy with how those games went? No, I'm not. And that's not me complaining. That's not me, being down on a winning streak, but that's just me um not being pleased with how things went. I'm gonna put the overlay back on the screen. I just wanted to get those comments up there, but and I do appreciate everybody who is commenting. I see some people are commenting on Instagram as well, which we are going to also get to. Somebody did just comment, and this is one of my IRL friends, Rob the Kid. He said the Knicks will go 6-2 and lose against Oklahoma City and Boston. That's fair. That is definitely a fair projection. I can
I
very
don't
much
want to
see
see us
that.
lose against Boston at home. I don't want to see it.
Uh,
I think I think it's like it's not a must-win game. I mean, if you're
It's
talking
the
about the two
it's a
seed,
must
it
win
is.
in my opinion. I
But
think
yeah, let's
okay,
win that. Let's win
here's
that
the
game,
thing.
please.
Here's the thing with that Boston game, and I feel like the context here matters. They do have
Yeah,
the tiebreaker over Boston. They do
which is
because they
huge.
have the
And
division
even if we
record.
lose, we have the tiebreaker.
Exactly, because they have the better division record um over Boston. They will finish with the better division record over Boston, and they already won 2 games against Boston. They got one more, so at worst they will be 2-2 against Boston. Let's say they lose that second to last game of the season. They'll be 2-2 at worst against Boston, right? So they already have the tiebreaker. So if the Knicks are in the second seed, and they have it locked up for that game, obviously that game holds less meaning. But I don't think that's going to end up being the case. I think those two teams are still going to very much be neck and neck. I think those two teams
Yeah.
are still going to be very close to one another by the time that game rolls around. And I hope that's the case because I don't want the Knicks to fall out of that spot, fall too far behind Boston to where they can't get it. So that game is going to matter. That game's going to be very important. That game's going to be probably one of their biggest games of the entire season.
And yeah. And
And
these
and,
next
and,
two
and
games are going to be important. Like if we lose these next two games, you could throw that 2 seed away.
I won't
The
go that
Knicks
far just yet, just because we got to see what happens with Boston.
sure,
But
sure. But
but
I think
but
if you, it's gonna be very difficult at that
it's
point.
gonna
Very
be
difficult.
tougher if you drop the next two. It will be. But again, if Boston say also drops the next two,
Mhm.
then
Yeah,
you're still right with them. But you feel like you'll have missed an opportunity because
for
Boston will
sure.
have dropped games.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
again, we still have 8 games, and I believe right now it's a 1.5 game difference
Yeah.
between
One
us
and
and
a half.
Boston. I can double check that right now just to confirm that. And yeah, it's 1.5 games. We're right
Yeah.
now 1.5 behind Boston. We're 5.5 behind the 1 seed, so you can kiss the 1 seed goodbye.
That's
There's
not
we're
happening.
not we're not getting the 1 seed, and the Pistons are pretty much this close to clinching the 1 seed. So
Yeah.
we don't need to worry about the 1 seed at this point. At this point, it is, and I'm looking at it right now. We are currently 6.5 games up on the Raptors for the 5 seed. So, and we're 7 games up on the Hawks for the 6 seeds, which is why our magic number to clinch the playoffs is just 1 or something like that. Because all we need
Yeah,
is
I
one
think
more
one,
win,
right?
and we clinch the
Yeah.
playoffs. All we need is one more win, and we clinch. So, realistically, they're not going to really fall anywhere past
I
4
will ask
unless they
you one question. Who is like the
go
one
for it.
team you don't want to face in the first round?
Yeah, and I talked about this a little bit in the last stream, and a team that I don't want to face in the first round is probably Charlotte now after
Yeah.
seeing how they played.
Yeah.
I still think the Knicks can beat the Hornets though in a 7 game series. If you
Yeah,
put the
we
Knicks in a seven
absolutely
game series with the Hornets, they should be able to handle them in 5 or 6 games. They really
yeah,
should. But
yeah,
um,
definitely.
that's definitely the going to be the toughest out of those play-in
Mhm.
teams.
Yeah.
Right now, if the season were to end, we would face Atlanta in the first round, and
Which, you know,
respectfully, I think the Knicks should
we
smack
should,
the
but I
Hawks.
think,
I think they
they
should
could
smack them.
bring some challenges like any
As
playoff
much as
series
as
does,
good as the
but,
Hawks are playing right now, I
we
think
should
the Knicks
yeah,
are just a way better team than the
should
Hawks, and I think they're
comfortably
just
within
riding
5.
a hot hand right now. If
Yeah,
you, I don't mean to undermine the Hawks winning streak, but if you look at who they played, you can see
yeah.
why they won so many games in a row. I'm just being
Mhm.
honest, and you could argue the same thing for the Knicks because they won 7 games in a row against a bunch of bottom feeding teams as well. So I get that, but I think the Knicks
Mhm.
have more quality wins than the Hawks, and I think the Knicks also have shown that they can handle more quality opponents than the Hawks can. The only way I think the Knicks would lose that kind of series is if they just get caught napping, like how they almost did against Detroit. I do see we have another comment on YouTube. We have a couple comments from the same person. I'm gonna pull those comments up. Let me just take this overlay off the screen. And don't worry, to the people on Instagram, I will get to you guys as well. I know a lot of you people are commenting on Instagram as well, and I will get to those. But this person just mentioned, from what we were just talking about the team we don't want to face, the Hornets, just them. The Magic too, just because every game we've played against them, someone has gotten injured. Magic play too physical for someone to not get injured. Health means chip or no chip. Well, the Magic do play physical, but I think the Knicks I think they're better than Orlando. I think those games in the beginning of the season were kind of, I wouldn't say an outlier, but they were kind of just, beginning of the season, teams are still trying to figure out who they are, and opposing teams are trying to figure out what their, opponents are like. I think by now we kind of know exactly what the Magic and the Hornets are like. So I'm not worried about the Magic. I think the Knicks would handle the Magic pretty easily. I think the Hornets would honestly be a tougher out than Orlando. I want to get your
Yeah,
input
I
on that,
agree.
though.
Yeah, I mean, Orlando has not been playing good basketball. I mean, they've been just kind of whatever since the start of the year. They're 39 and 34. They haven't been great as of recent. I'm just not too worried about them. Their offense is just not very good. You don't really know what you're gonna get out of Paolo. You don't really know what they're going to give you. Of course, they're going to be physical. Sure, they might win a game against us, but I'd much rather play Orlando than Charlotte because Charlotte, that offense is flowing. That chemistry is really strong right now. I'd much rather play Orlando, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely would want to play Orlando too. And I'm looking at some of the Instagram comments, because I promised I would get to those as well. Somebody had just said, the easier games coming up for the Knicks. You got the Grizzlies, Bulls, and Raptors. Yeah, the Knicks should be able to take care of business against those three teams, no problem. And then he said slight wins, like slight chances for them to win, would be like the Rockets, the Hornets, and the Hawks. Yeah, I agree that should be something that the Knicks should be favored in. I don't know if they beat them, but I think they should be favored in each of those.
We should
And
beat
then,
the
of course,
Rockets. They're a weird
I
team.
think we should beat all three of those teams, but
Yeah.
again, I can't expect them to be perfect. And then the
Mhm.
tough matchups, of course, Boston, Oklahoma City. Yeah, those two are easily the two toughest games they have remaining. Those are arguably the two best teams in the league. So those are two teams that are going to be the super toughest as they come down the stretch. And I do see some other comments here. Someone keeps asking how we feel about Mikhail right now, and I've talked about Mikhail a lot lately, Johnny. So I think you should be the one to talk about Mikhail a little bit, since the viewers have not really heard from you as much lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give your input just on Mikhail, not just his recent performances, but just overall. I want to hear what you got to say about this.
I
So
I like Mikal Bridges. I think he's a talented player, but like we say every time we come on stream, you don't know what you're gonna get out of this guy. You have no clue. This guy was a runner-up defensive player of the year a couple years ago. That's not what we're getting now. Sure, the defense in the playoffs last year was great, and I hope he does that against Boston again because we're probably gonna play them in the second round. We're probably gonna play them. So it's like I hope he shows up, but it's so hard for me. Like I keep saying this, but it's so hard for me to really talk about Mikal Bridges because I don't know what he's going to give us. And now, if he was consistently poor, I'd say he's consistently poor. And if he's consistently good, I'd say that. But he's been pretty mediocre this season. I mean, he started off really hot, efficiency there. And he's been a little bit better the past couple of games. It was really rough, like the past a couple of weeks ago. And, now the past few games, it's been better. But I don't know what we're going to get out of Mikal Bridges. I don't. I don't think he's been amazing. I think it's obviously a bad trade. I could say that with confidence. It was a bad trade, but there's no reason to even talk about that because he's still on a team. So all I want from Mikal Bridges is good defense, fighting around screens, cutting the passing lanes, getting steals, getting blocks, and just efficient buckets. Give me 15 points a night on great defense in the playoffs. I'm happy.
yeah, that's pretty much all I've been asking. I've been saying, you give me 15 some odd points, on a more consistent basis with good efficiency. I don't want him shooting poorly, and with a decent defense, then you live with it. But the fact of the matter is, this season has just been such a downward spiral for him. It's unfortunate. It's not what we want. We expect better out of him. We can hope to see better out of him
He's a
soon,
talented
but
player. We should like. I think he obviously expects more out of him, and he's the fourth option very clearly now. OG has been insane offensively. So
yeah.
Mikhail is clearly the fourth. So just get me efficient buckets. If the three is not falling, get to the rim. We don't see that enough. Get to the rim, create easy shots for yourself. You could create off the dribble. You are a good offensive player. Just show it. It's that simple. Just show it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all we've asked for. We haven't asked for a lot. And somebody else did just bring up another comment. This is about Jalen Brunson. This is a pretty interesting comment here that I'm going to pull up on the screen right now. He said, Brunson's lost that extra boost of energy and footwork. He has a harder time scoring now. Whole Knicks team needs to contribute if we want Brunson to feel himself. Remember, he is aging little by little. This is interesting because Jalen Brunson obviously is still the team's best scorer, team's best player, the guy they depend on the most. But, I do see what you're coming from, that it doesn't feel as dominant as it was in previous years. And I think the
No,
reason for that is a couple things. I think one thing, and this is just kind of speculatory, perhaps the ankle is still bothering him a little bit. Maybe it
probably
is.
is.
They've been managing it all year long. So maybe he's just taking it easy so that he's ready to go full steam ahead for the postseason. Or, another reason, it could be the system, because the system in Mike Brown, it emphasizes more ball movement. And we've noticed lately that Jalen Brunson has been playing more like a playmaker, more of a true point guard. He's gotten a lot higher assist numbers. Of course, there's been some hiccups in the way with some turnovers, struggles, and this, that, third. But we're seeing a slightly different play style. So, with that being said, I don't think like Brunson's like necessarily gotten worse. I still think he's an elite player. He's still just as good as he was last year. I think he's just trying to adapt to a different style and make a worthy sacrifice to get some of the other players involved, because as you pointed out in your comment, the others do need to contribute. If not only do we want Brunson to feel himself, but also for the Knicks to go far. It can't just be Jalen Brunson, please save us again. It can't be that.
It won't.
So
It won't work.
Johnny,
It won't
Johnny, I
work.
want to get your input on all of that, because this is a
Yeah.
pretty interesting comment.
I understand where he's coming from. I mean, the efficiency numbers are down. That's a fact. His efficiency numbers are down, and he's still a very good, isolation one-on-one scorer, one of the best in the league. But he hasn't been as efficient this year. There's been a lot more. Okay, that's a bad shooting night from Brunson this year, but it's the playoffs. He could turn into that Jalen Brunson that we know, that dominant scorer where you really can't do anything. And getting to that point where he's aging a little by little, I understand it because we've seen in this league smaller guards who take contact. They don't last as long as, these bigger guards. It's just not really how it happens. Now, I don't want to say he's getting older, he's slowly declining. I don't want to say that because this dude could go for 45 in a playoff win and it's like whatever. But I also do think it's a little bit of the system. It's clearly not as Jalen Brunson save us as much as it was under Tom Thibodeau, because there was so many instances, especially in the playoffs, where Jalen Brunson needed to save our team, but I don't think it's as much as that this year, I guess I could say. Obviously, the system's different. Mike Brown emphasizes that ball movement, but yeah, I don't think you're wrong in saying he hasn't been as good this year, because he hasn't. Like past 2 seasons, he was probably a better player.
And
But he's still
I'm glad you've been bringing this up, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
no, you're good. No
this
worries.
kind of ties into your point a little bit.
Yeah,
Somebody on the Instagram asked, "Who do we think is the most important player on the team other than Brunson?" I
I
want
was
you
gonna
to
bring
give
that
your
up.
answer
Yeah.
first.
OG Anunoby. I think it's very cool. When OG's playing, like this dude is a defensive player of the year caliber player. Remove Wembenyama aside, I think he's the best defender on the planet. Able to guard 1 through 5. We saw what he did against Joel Embiid in that playoff series, locked down. This is a guy, there's not many players in the NBA that can switch on to, a Steph Curry on the perimeter and also defend a Joel Embiid in the paint and be elite. OG Anunoby is, when this guy is on, especially that offense, this guy is one of the best two-way players in the league. I am so high on his defense. His base is so strong. He could guard absolutely anybody. And right now, as we're seeing, when that offense is on, this dude's a demon, absolute demon.
And I hear you, because OG is very important, as you just brought up. He's super important. I think just the identity he brings, he gives the team a defensive identity. He's going to consistently be your best perimeter defender. But I'm going to say a different player for that question. I
Okay,
think
okay.
Cat is a little more
All
important here,
right, all
because
right.
when you look at the 2-9 stretch, right? Who was the biggest problem at the time? It was Karl
Yeah,
Anthony Towns.
yeah,
He
it
was the
was.
biggest problem. So now, since then, right? Since the All-Star break, or since that 2-9 stretch, wherever you want to start the
Been our
interval
best
here,
player.
the Knicks have been playing really well. And who else has been playing really well? Karl Anthony
Fair
Towns.
take.
He
Fair
has been
take.
playing like an all-star. He's been playing very close to one. I wouldn't say he's been as dominant as he was last year, but it's very close to it. He's been one of the best rebounders in the league. And I think the biggest noteworthy thing of Cat lately, the
The defense.
defense. He
Yeah,
has become
yeah.
a much better defender over the past month, to where He's actually like a good defender. I can call him a good defender currently
Having the
because
best defensive season of his career.
historically he has been a awful defender. You and I know that. Most Knicks fans know that. Most basketball fans know that.
Yeah,
But the past month or so, he has been exceptional on the defensive side. And somebody on Twitter made a good point about this, and I fully agree with this. They said that Jalen Brunson is like the floor of the Knicks' success, which means you're going to have a level of success with Brunson. He guarantees you a level of success to some
agreed.
degree, whether that means you're making the playoffs or not. But Karl Anthony Towns elevates that ceiling, meaning
Completely.
that if you want to go far, Karl Anthony Towns playing how he's playing is going to determine that. Because Jalen Brunson, we know at this point what he's going to bring in a playoff setting. We know he's going to be, scoring in bunches, providing a bunch of a big impact on that
Can I
side.
interrupt you real quick?
Go for it.
Looking at that YouTube comment, I want to bring this up. He said, I would kill to see a Brunson 50-point game in the playoffs. I'd rather see a Karl Anthony Towns 50-point bomb. I would love to see that
Pull
where
up that
Cat is
comment
just
for those who want to know
shooting
what we're
from
talking
this
about.
crazy distance. Like, I'd love to see a Karl Anthony Towns 50 piece on like a playoff win. That'd be awesome. That'd be
And will that happen? I don't think
probably
it'll
not.
happen. I
There's
don't think
too
so,
much
but
talent, but you never
and
know.
nor do I need it to happen for the Knicks to do anything
Yeah,
crazy. I would love to
yeah,
see it as a
yeah.
fan. Oh,
Yeah.
I would be stoked if Karl
When
Anthony
he's
Towns
just
dropped
hitting every
50 in
shot,
a
it's
playoff
awesome.
game. That's what I'm saying. When Karl Anthony Towns is on a heater, he's one of the most fun offensive players to
Yeah,
watch. But I don't need him to also do
yeah,
that
of course.
to make things happen for the Knicks. I think the way they play when they play a team branded basketball, I think that's better for them. I think I mentioned this a few months ago, and
Mhm.
I'm going to bring it up again. When I noticed that their assist numbers reach like the high 20s or even close to 30, when they reach that mark of a high assist mark, they win games. When they move the ball well, they win. Not only do they win by a lot.
Blow
They tend
teams
to
out,
blow
yeah.
teams out when they move the ball really well and they get a lot of assists. They hit high assist numbers. They start to struggle when you're converting those assists into turnovers instead, and you're getting high turnover numbers, and you're also not moving the ball enough because you're turning it over. You start playing a lot of isolation, too many one and done possessions. That's when things start to snowball. When they start moving the ball, good things happen. Look at when look at like Mitchell Robinson, for example. The Knicks realized finally, it took only 6 months for them to realize it, but that he's a really good lob threat. So now they've been
Yeah.
throwing lobs to him, and he's been scoring, and the offense has been doing well because of that. So with that being said, I really think that when they move the ball really well and they get keep teams on their toes really defensively, then that's where they start to win games. That's really where they start. And somebody just mentioned this in the Instagram comments, and I'm gonna get to this. This person said that our team needs to get more tough and bang down teams, and we'll be all right. Cat needs to face contact. Yeah, if Cat plays physical, if Cat plays with aggression on both sides of the ball, good things will happen not only for Cat but for the team. Because when a guy is playing physical, or when a few guys on the court are playing physical, that inflicts an identity with the team. The team will start to play tougher because the guys around him are playing tougher. You know what I mean? They're going to like actually really make a force on that. And I want to get your input on that, Johnny, because Cat, we know we heard that quote from Josh Minot a week ago where he said that Cat doesn't like physicality, which I personally think isn't true. I don't think that's like, yes, to a degree we've seen that Cat sometimes struggles with physicality, but I don't think he doesn't like it. I think he just needs to work on matching the physicality. And I think in the past month he has done a good job at that. And I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't agree with what he said. I think Cat, as you said, just needs to match the physicality. And when he does that, he is such a good player. He is so dominant when he plays up to the energy level, I guess you could say, of the game. And this dude is, hitting shots. He's defensively aware and the intensity's there. This guy is so, so good. And kind of diverging from that point, we were just talking about Mitchell Robinson. I do want to give Mitchell Robinson and Mike Brown a lot of credit because this is very clearly, in my opinion, Mitchell Robinson's best year of his career. He's been available. His defense is incredible. He's like the best offensive rebounder in NBA history on like a per 36 minutes basis. It's ridiculous.
The only year I'll argue he was better in was 2021, 2022.
Sure.
I would say he was better that year, but
That's
it doesn't
fair.
matter. They missed the playoffs. So I
Yeah,
think this is
they
the year
weren't
he's
as
making the most impact to a winning team.
impact.
But
Yeah,
continue.
you could say that. The most impactful basketball he's played, especially since he's staying healthy. So credit to Mike Brown for managing Mitchell Robinson to perfection. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they do deserve a lot of credit. And Mitchell Robinson, I've mentioned Mitchell Robinson in the past few streams I've been doing. I owe the man an apology because the
We
biggest
both do
reason
because
that
we
I
were
was
low key trying to get him out of here. You know what I
the
mean?
biggest reason that I was so stern about the idea of moving him was because largely because of the health. I never denied his on-court impact. I always knew that he was an impactful defensive player, great rebounder, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. The free throws obviously is not ideal,
Whatever.
but
Yeah.
but I think the Knicks have found a good way to deter it now because teams have stopped doing the hack a Mitch as much. But aside from that, it was always the health. That was always the biggest thing that was worrisome to me because really, ever since that season I just mentioned, the 2021
Yeah.
2022 season when he was outstanding, ever since then,
I played.
he had always been hurt. He was
Yeah.
missing so many games. He barely even played 30 games each of those seasons. This year, he's been very healthy. Excuse me. And I think the Knicks have also done a very good job at managing his health, at ensuring he's staying healthy for the games that are going to matter more, which are those playoff games, of course. We saw in the Boston series last year, he was probably their most impactful player. I mean,
Monster.
that guy,
Monster.
the Celtics were afraid of Mitchell Robinson to the point where they had to foul him on purpose just to get him off the floor. So, with that being said, I mean, when he's out there and he's healthy, he's moving well, that changes a lot for the Knicks because it gives them more second chance opportunities. Of course, the rebounding. Of course, the rebounding against Charlotte was not good for anybody on the Knicks, but we can look past the Charlotte game and we're just talking in general here. The rebounding, the defense, all that stuff, it's so impactful. It's so important. And I owe him an apology. I think the Knicks need to keep Mitchell Robinson around long term. I think at this point you got to keep the guy around. You don't want to end up in another Isaiah Hartenstein situation where you seem like you can bring him back and you don't. I think the Knicks have leverage. I think the Knicks can bring him back. It's just a matter of um, what
Does he want to
Mitchell
be here?
Robinson wants.
Yeah.
How much money he's going to command or what kind of role he's going to want. I
See,
think
I'm
the
still
Knicks
like
need to meet
unsure.
those.
Yeah, I'm still like unsure if he like actually wants to be here, like long term. Like, what
That's
do
what I'm
you
saying.
think? Does he want to go
That's
back
what I'm
down
saying.
south, or I don't
That's
really
what I'm
know. I
saying.
have no idea.
I think it's more so just like the situation here because he's
Yeah,
coming off the bench for the Knicks and maybe he feels like he should be starting, even though
which
he's
is
still playing a
fair.
good amount of minutes. But maybe he likes being on this team. Maybe he enjoys being on the team that drafted him. That
Mm,
he's been through the times where we were the worst team in the league with no future in sight to now where we're talking about a team that can compete for a championship in late March. So
yeah.
I think it really just depends. And I do want to turn it over to some comments on Instagram. Someone asked this a couple minutes ago. I'm gonna just bring it up now. He asked, "Which teams in the East do you think take the Knicks to 7 games?" That is a very good question. Um, I will outright say right now that the only team I feel like that could take the Knicks that the Knicks could go 7 games with is the Boston Celtics. I think if the Knicks match up with the Detroit Pistons, they will lose that in less games. And I don't mean to sound like a Debbie Downer here. I don't mean to be negative, but I think at this
Yeah,
current
I
moment,
agree.
a healthy Detroit Pistons are a better team. So until the Knicks prove me otherwise, then that's what I'm going to say. But aside from the Detroit Pistons, because again, if they meet the Pistons, and as long as they don't fall to 4, they won't meet the Pistons until at latest the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yep.
So any other team, really the only team I think that would go 7 with the Knicks is Boston, and I think the Knicks would take that. I do think the Knicks would take that series. Um, I don't see a situation where like the Cavaliers or the Raptors or the Hawks take them to 7. If any of those teams, if the Cavs go to 7, okay, but if the Raptors or Hawks, if we match up
Blow
with
this team
them
up.
and they take the Knicks to 7, that's an issue.
Yeah,
It
that's
doesn't
big.
matter if you win the series, that's a problem. You should
They're
not be
taking us
going
to
to 7
7.
against
Just
those.
we're not winning anything.
Well, look at last year, for example. We nearly
Yeah,
went to 7 with the Pistons when
we were a buzzer beater away.
it was a different Pistons team, a team that, quite frankly, maybe on paper looked better, but was not a better playing group as they are this year. So the Knicks really should not have had that many games against Detroit. They should have handled them really. They should have handled them in 5. Honestly, I mean the fact that it
Yeah,
went 6, it wasn't ideal, but whatever. The fact that it almost went 7, though, I mean, if it went 7, I would have been very scared because
yeah.
you
Like,
can't
and,
play with
like,
your food like that against a 6-seeded team.
imagine that game goes to 7 and we lose. Like, this team is completely different. Like, yeah, it's just something crazy to think about. Like, that Jalen Brunson shot was
I
huge.
don't mean to interrupt. Somebody in the
There you go.
comments on Instagram brought up my Knicks water bottle. Yeah, This is a
Fire.
Knicks water bottle that I got, and
Oh,
yeah,
I also have a Knicks water bottle
yeah,
too, right
we
beside
we
me.
we we you can never question my fandom. I'm also wearing a Knicks shirt. I know YouTube on Twitter people can't really see
I'm
because of the
also
overlay. Yeah,
wearing the Knicks shirt.
yeah,
The
we
boys
we
are
are.
locked in.
Look, I'll get rid of the overlay. Look, I got on a Knicks shirt. I have the Knicks flag in my background. Johnny's wearing
Yep.
the Knicks hoodie. We have everything Knicks here, so you can never question our fandom here over here on Five Star Knicks. We are very much
Locked in.
deep rooted with this team. But anyways, kind of just moving on. I'm scrolling through some of the Instagram comments just to kind of see what you guys are chatting about and what we can talk about. I love seeing these comments and stuff like that. Here's a good one. Somebody said, it's sad people blaming the loss against Charlotte on Brunson while the bench didn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, I thought Brunson and Anunoby were the only ones really against Charlotte who were doing anything. I think they were the only ones who really did anything against Charlotte. I mean, Brunson wasn't the best from three, but he did everything else in the mid range and stuff. And Anunoby was red hot from three. What do you think about that, Johnny? Do you really
Well,
think that Charlotte loss was on Brunson?
I
No.
unfortunately wasn't there. Remember, I couldn't watch the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
For the
I
people
was.
who should I reveal what you
You
were
can
doing?
reveal. You can reveal.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For the people who aren't aware, obviously, the man was at a Flow Rida concert.
Oh wait, I
Johnny
forgot to
is
tell you.
21 years old, listening to Flow Rida in
He
person.
actually
Um,
turned up. This dude was lit. The songs were fire. The music was fire. Unfortunately,
so
the
so
Knicks
so you
lost, so
ended
it
up
wasn't
enjoying
perfect.
it. Maybe
I
maybe
actually
maybe that's maybe now you have to go on your own will.
I actually really enjoyed the Flow Rida concert, and maybe me and Dylan will go to the Flow Rida concert. I don't know. I don't
You
know.
know what? If we
If
make
we
the
win a
finals,
championship, we'll go to a Flow Rida
if we
concert.
win a championship, we'll make that happen.
Yeah, sure. That you
Anyways,
guys can quote that, whatever. Because if we win a championship, I'll do pretty much anything. So
anyways, kind of just moving on to some other comments on Instagram here. I see, my brother just commented on Instagram. Respect Flow Rider, please. Yeah, we always
got
respect
some
Flow Rider
bangers, man.
here.
He's got some bangers.
Somebody else asked a minute ago. He said, "Do you guys think Hart will be an important player for us?" Absolutely. I have no doubts about how important Josh Hart is going to be to this team. I think Josh Hart and the rebounding, the playmaking, and if he actually shoots the ball, I think that's the biggest key. Look against Johnny. You missed the Charlotte game, obviously, but for better reasons, of course.
Okay.
But
Yeah, of
anyway,
course.
anyway, against Charlotte, they were down like double digits a lot in the fourth quarter. Josh
I
Hart had,
did
I
see
think,
that, yeah.
4 points entering the fourth quarter, and then he started shooting. Why didn't he do that before? Is my thing. I tweeted this the other day, and I want to get your take on this. I never understood why Josh Hart sometimes just doesn't shoot. It makes no sense to me at this point.
I
It
think you
doesn't
would
because
have to ask Josh Hart because I don't know either. I don't know why.
I
I don't know
don't
what
get
it
it
is.
because I don't get it personally because look, it's not like Josh Hart is like again, it's not like this. He's a good shooter this year. This year he's shooting really well, but
It's not like
we
he's
know he's
Amen
not like
Thompson
some.
can't shoot. Literally
Yeah, we
can't.
we
Like,
we know he's not like Steph Curry from three, but the guy's
yeah.
not a bad 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why he just doesn't shoot when he's open because when he doesn't do that, it hurts the offense. The offense gets clunky. It gets very crowded. No spacing, no nothing, and that's when they go on the long scoring droughts. And Johnny, I want to hear what you got to say about this. Like, what do you want Josh Hart to do more? I think the answer is pretty obvious here, but what do you want him to do?
If you are anybody on this team that is playing for the New York Knicks, not named Mitchell Robinson, and you are open from three, please take the shot. You are in the NBA and you are not named Mitchell Robinson. I guarantee you it could maybe go in. Josh Hart, there's been way too many times where I've seen this season, Josh Hart is literally open on the perimeter and is just like looking to pass. Bro, you're wide open. Shoot the ball. Like they'll have games where this dude hits 5 threes and doesn't miss, and then there's other games where he doesn't even look at the rim. I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe we have to bring
And
Josh Hart on the show and ask him.
he's somebody who has said in the past that he likes to be a servant to his teammates, kind of play that like that hub, and that's fine. I
Sure.
get that, but at the same time, as you just said, shoot the ball,
If you're
please
open,
shoot
shoot
it.
it.
It's not just him. I feel like Mikal Bridges lately has shown some hesitancy at times
Yeah.
as well, and I know Mikal has struggled this year. I understand. But I'd rather a guy take a good shot than not take it because when a guy isn't
Yeah.
taking a shot, then they become more useless. That's why Jose Alvarado has fallen out of the rotation essentially because he wasn't shooting the ball. He wasn't really looking to do anything with the ball other than give it up. And we have guys on the team that can just do the same thing. So you gotta make yourself an imposing threat on offense. You have to actually like make yourself reliable. And as I just said, shoot the ball,
Yeah,
shoot it.
because if we have guys
We're
that are not
as
going to
you just
shoot
said,
them,
this is
yeah,
2026. This is a time where everybody's shooting threes. Everybody. 7'5" Victor
yeah.
Wembanyama is pulling threes from half court. Now, do
I
I think that's
guarantee you, Josh
smart?
Hart
No.
can.
But if he can do that, then there's no reason that Josh Hart shouldn't be able to do that.
This is not the 1960s, guys. We're done with that. This is 2026. Josh Hart, shoot the basketball, please. Just shoot the basketball.
Yeah, like that's really all we wanted him to do. Because, again, he's not like some Steph Curry, Ray Allen type shooter. No, but he's not a bad shooter. And when he is confident, he hits a lot of shots. He makes his shots. So if he can take and make more threes, that changes a lot for the Knicks offense because I already think as the way it is, the Knicks offense is you know, amazing. I think the offense as a whole is great, but the hesitancy, the lack of, actually trying to put up a shot, that's something that really frustrates me. I really just want to see him shoot the ball more. When he put up those threes against Charlotte in the fourth quarter, I was frustrated because I was like, well, where was this before? Where was this aggression before? Because if we had that aggression before, maybe we stay close and maybe we win that game. Maybe they don't go down double digits. Maybe they don't fall down nearly 20 points.
I will
Maybe
say
they
one
actually
thing.
do something. Go
Once
for
we
it.
get to the playoffs, Josh Hart just goes crazy with the threes. This dude will hit the clutch threes for us. I believe it. I really
And
believe it.
And he's done that all the time, which is
He's
so
done it
funny
all
to
the
me
time.
because if you look back at it, he is a big reason for a lot of clutch shots they've hit
Like in the
in
Boston
playoff games.
series, he was hitting clutch threes.
Josh
Yeah.
Hart hit that game winner a couple years ago in Cleveland against in the
Yeah.
first round.
Yes.
He hit the
Yes.
game winner in Philly to send them home. He sent
Mm-hmm.
Philly home
Like,
2
shoot
years
the
ago with a three.
basketball.
The guy can shoot. He needs to just actually feel confident, actually do it. You know what I
Do it.
mean? Like
Do it.
we can't use the finger excuse anymore with him because he's willing to play through it and he's shown you he can still make shots despite that finger problem. So with
Yeah.
that being said,
He got
shoot it.
better with the broken finger. Like,
That's what
just
I'm
shoot the
saying. Like,
ball.
how do you become a better shooter when your finger is bent the wrong
Bro,
way? I
hold
don't
the
understand.
ball, like held the ball a different way and it worked. I don't know.
His finger is like quite
Bench.
literally bending the wrong way. Someone said every time the shot clock is winding down, find Josh Hart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Anytime there's like 4 seconds on the clock and you don't have a shot, just find
Just give
Hart.
it a go.
Find him.
Yeah.
Find him because he's gonna somehow make it. I don't know how
Mhm.
he manages to do that every time, but Josh Hart's a funny player, man. When you really think about it, he is a
Funny
funny
player.
NBA player. He's such an elite role player for what he provides and what he brings. But it's just a funny
He
play
just
style.
seems
You
like just
you
a
get
guy
this
that just plays basketball.
you got this 6'4" guard who is out there just crashing boards and throwing wicked full court outlet passes while also shooting threes. I remember against the Pacers 2 weeks ago when he got that heat check when he made like 4 threes in the span of 2 minutes. I was like, where
What's
was
going on?
this? Where's this? Like, why don't
Funny
you do
player.
this more? It's just insane because we know he can actually make shots and we know he's capable of hitting a ton of shots, but he needs to actually take them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
again, there's just a lot of different things that can go that the Knicks need to have go their way for them to be successful. But it really starts with Josh Hart on the offensive side. I think it starts with Karl-Anthony Towns and Josh Hart. Those two guys right there are your biggest keys to having offensive success because you need Towns to be effective, of course, in the perimeter, but you also need to be effective in the low post because we saw in the beginning of the year he did struggle in the
It
low
was
post a
bad.
little bit. He was
It was
missing a
good.
lot of layups and he was struggling against smaller matchups. I think if he's able to get going in the low post, it'll help open up the perimeter a little bit more too because they'll have to put more bodies on Towns and that'll
Mhm.
leave shooters open. That's how you'll get some
Mhm.
better looks. And of course, vice versa. If Towns starts shooting more threes and making more threes, then they have to respect his shot. And so now no one's in the paint. So now you have pretty much a whole court to kind of just pick and choose your own shot, which that's what the Knicks need. They need it. But Johnny, as we get close to wrapping up this stream, I just with what's coming up, of course, for the playoffs, I think we're at this point now where we kind of just want to get to the playoffs. I think we want to just get there
Playoff
healthy
time. Playoff
and
time. Yeah.
feel good about this team. What do you want to see in the next 8 games? I imagine we're not going 8-0. I should point that out. If anyone's
Probably won't
expecting us
happen.
to go 8-0, then
That'd be
that's
brilliant, but
I respect the optimism if you want us to go 8-0, but we're not going 8-0. I highly don't. I highly doubt that. But that's okay. I don't need him to go 8-0.
You don't need to
I
go
need
8
him.
0.
I just
Seven
want
game series
a
for a
lot of.
reason.
I want a different. Exactly, and I just want like a different type of process and stuff to look better. And Johnny, what in particular do you want to see different over these next 8 games, especially on the court and just the way they go
Yeah.
about these games?
I just want to see some consistency. I think I swear I sound like a broken record. I say this every time we make a video, every time we're on stream. Be consistent, show up on the defensive side of the ball, and this team will be good. That's all it is. The offense, sometimes they won't be efficient, but they're still going to be a really good offense. It's that simple. It's like the Yankees. That offense is always going to be good. It'll struggle sometimes, but you really need that pitching staff to show up. That's how I feel about the Knicks. The offense will always be good, even though they'll go through their struggles. You need the defense to show up. That's what it is. Because if the defense doesn't show up in the playoffs, it's not happening. Nothing will happen if this defense doesn't show up. So intensity, consistency, defense. Those are the three biggest things for me.
Yeah, and I got a couple people commenting, chiming in on this convo, and I'm going to talk about those as well real quick. First off, somebody said, "Love the page fireside, hoping to go 5-3 or 6-2 out of these next games to close it out." I do appreciate the support on the page, and I do appreciate that a lot. And I also agree. I would like to see like 5-3, 6-2. That would be ideal. If they go 4-4, it'd be like, it would just be like whatever, kind of just
Boston.
Exactly. Like if they go like 4-4, just be like, I wouldn't feel amazing about that. But
2 seed if you're going 4-4,
I would only be okay with that if they remain 3 and they stay healthy. If they stay healthy,
yeah,
cool. Let's get to the playoffs healthy at this point. And someone else also just mentioned an important factor, and I agree with this. Mikal recovering from his slump. I feel like we're seeing baby steps with him.
Yeah.
He's gotten 14 points exactly in the last 3 games each. And to the person who tweeted that not that they're not going to tweet again until Mikal scores 15, man, I feel really sorry for you. I think Mikal's playing games on you at this point because exactly 14 in 3 straight games. Yeah. If he scores 14 tomorrow night against Oklahoma City, I would be firmly convinced at that point that he's doing it on purpose. But anyways, jokes aside, I think that's a huge important factor. I think, of course, as you mentioned, the consistency is going to be huge. We say consistency all the time. It feels like we're kind of engraving that word into your guys' skulls at this point. I feel like if I say the word consistency 3 times fast in front of my mirror, then Mike Brown is going to show up out of nowhere. But anyways, with that being said, I mean, the consistency is going to be very important, though. It's still very true. They have to be consistent on both ends. They need to figure out exactly who they are entering the playoffs. They need to feel good about themselves. They need to feel good about themselves entering the playoffs because, you don't want to go to the playoffs not exactly knowing who you are and not really knowing like what kind of team you got. Because I feel like one of the big things with the Knicks this year is that they kind of don't really know. They don't know what team they got. They don't know if this is a offensive heavy team, like if that's their strength, if defense is their strength, if the depth is their strength. I don't think they really know like what their strength is.
I don't think anybody knows what.
And it's fine to use the regular season to figure that out, but you only got 8 more games to really figure it out because when the playoffs roll around, you better have an idea of who you are. You better know like what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and how to manage that, how to work around that, and how to manage that in your rotations and manage that with who's on the court and this, that, and third. Like we can talk about many different factors. We can talk about Towns needing to play like an all-star, Brunson needing to still score a high level, Mikal coming out of his slump, Josh Hart needing to shoot, the guys off the bench providing a spark. We could talk about all of that stuff, but none of that is going to matter if they're not a consistent team as a whole. And as a whole, they have to remain consistent. And right now, they haven't been a consistent team overall. It's objectively true. They haven't. While the numbers may tell you since January that they've played relatively consistent, I think the eye test would tell a little bit of a different story. Yes, they've done a ton of winning. They're like 23-7, 23-8.
Defense has been better. They just need to continue it.
Defense has been great. I think there's just some lapses they've endured recently, especially in the perimeter, which again, you don't want to create bad habits. And that's what we've been emphasizing over this little winning period because they can win so many games and this, that, and the other. They win so many. They've won a lot of games this year. They're literally 2 games away from winning 50 wins for the 3rd consecutive season, which is fantastic. I think that's a huge milestone for the Knicks, a team that
the New York Knicks,
a team that in the 21st century has had just too much bad years. So that'd be a great accomplishment. But we're kind of past that like grateful stage of, we're grateful that it's a
I
playoff
want
team.
to
No, we're
win.
ready.
I want to
We're
win.
ready
I want
to
to win a
like
championship.
2 or 3 years ago, we were just happy to see them playing
Yeah.
competitive basketball again. Now though, we're ready to win a title because now they've spent years building this team to be a title contender. And I think they're right in that title contending conversation, but they still have stuff to prove. And I think
They need
there's
to do it.
always room for improvement when you're chasing a title because it is so tough to win a title in this day and age. There's so many good teams out there this year, especially. Look at the San Antonio Spurs. They have lost 2 games in the last 60 days. One of them was to us, but they have lost 2 games in the last 60 days. I mean, that's impressive stuff right there. They're all of a sudden looking like a serious threat in the Western Conference. And in the East, of
Mhm.
course, you got Boston being who they are, with Tatum back now. And of course, you got us who are very good this year, but you got other teams in the way as well. The Pistons, as we mentioned as well, they've been dominant all year. So there's a lot that needs to go the Knicks' way. And it's as simple as be consistent. If you're consistent, they will find a lot of success. And somebody just mentioned if the 2-9 stretch didn't happen, they would have had 60 wins. I know. They
We
really
could have
would
been the
have. If you
first
really
seed. Oh my
if you really
god.
look at it, that 2-9 stretch is the
Dude,
reason they're not only not going to get 60 wins, but also why they're not getting the one
that
seed either.
Dallas game, I thought it was over. I literally thought we were texting.
I
I thought the
thought
season was over. I
me
did
and
not think
Johnny
we
were
would
having
come out of that.
conversations during that Dallas game, and it was just not looking good that day. It was like I really was
So
preparing
bad.
myself for something to shake up. Did I think somebody was going to get fired or traded that night? Not necessarily, but I was ready to see um, things change. And credit to the Knicks, they've responded very well to that adversity by winning a lot more games and coming up with some big statement wins in the process over teams
Yeah.
like Denver twice and San Antonio and Houston and you name it. But again, just to wrap up my point so I'm not yapping too much, consistency is the huge thing. That's
Key.
what they need to find. And I think these next 8 games, this very tough stretch, objectively a tough stretch, by the way. There's been people telling me
Yeah.
that it's not as tough of a stretch as you think. No,
No,
it
it
is
is.
objectively a tough stretch
Yeah.
because statistically it's the second hardest schedule remaining in the league. And the only team with the hardest schedule is the team we play tomorrow night, Oklahoma City. So,
Mhm.
objectively, it's a tough stretch. They're going to have some tough games. They're probably going to lose a couple games here and there, and that's fine. You don't have to go undefeated in the NBA to be successful. I just want to see the process look good each night. There's going to be nights maybe they don't look as good. Oh well, chalk it up and improve the next game. Thursday against Charlotte.
Yeah.
Bad game. They didn't play that great. I thought they were competitive the first 2.5 quarters, and then it got away from them. Clean that up, clean the defense up, fix it, move on to the next game, and show in Oklahoma City what you worked on. I think if they're able to do that, they
That'd
can
be a
not only win
statement
against
win.
Oklahoma
That'd be a
City, but
statement win. You got to do that.
it'd be a huge win if they can go into Oklahoma City on the road and walk away with a win. That'd be a huge win. Probably the biggest win of the season.
Probably.
So, you know, that's all we really want. And, Johnny,
Show
before
up.
I do wrap things up, I want to give you an opportunity for any final thoughts and, anything else to really wrap up on because, we've been on here for about an hour now. So,
Yeah, I think we covered, the majority of what we wanted to talk about. And yeah, I don't want to say it again, but that C word, consistency. I like it's just we say it every time. I want to see us be consistent on the defensive side of the ball in specific, and I think we'll be okay. That's it. I'm done.
it's really that simple. I mean, that's all we can ask for. But anyways, guys, we've been on here for about an hour, and I think this is a good time to
Appreciate
wrap
you guys.
things
Thank
up.
you.
I do appreciate everybody that has tuned into the stream, both on YouTube, Twitter, and of course Instagram, the places we stream this on. I really appreciate everybody. Make sure if you're watching it on YouTube that you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you're watching this on my Twitter, make sure to follow me on Twitter. Make sure you also follow Johnny on Twitter. Both our Twitters are right there on the screen if you are on YouTube and X. And if you're on the Instagram, my Twitter is at Dylan Becker ESM, and Johnny's Twitter is at JohnnyOx88. Make sure you guys follow both of us on there. And yeah, we will see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. We really appreciate all the support, and that's all I gotta say. So peace out, and let's go
Peace out.
Knicks.
Go Knicks.